Welcome back, everybody. So last time I showed you all the Wordle solver that I made that helps to serve as a companion for you to build to solve each Wordle every day. So here, just to demonstrate a little bit, we can click to reflect the coloring that Wordle gives us after it tells us what letters are in the right spot, what letters are in the wrong spot, and what letters aren't in the word. And then we also have a word list that we can help choose if we don't like the suggested word that automatically populates for us. So this is the baseline of what it is that we're going to create. We're going to create this in a series of videos. And today we're going to start with just kind of doing the basic UI of the first word, which then serves as the basic UI for the remaining words as well. So what we need to do to create this and get this here is we go to File, New File, Shiny Web App. And then we're going to keep this multiple file clicked. If yours is on single file, make sure you do the multiple file. And then we're going to call this Wordle Companion. So I already have mine created. So I am not going to actually click create, but all you would do is you would browse to the particular folder you want this in, click create, and then it will pop up with this. I'm going to click cancel because I already have mine open behind. So now this is what you should all be seeing on in your RStudio. So I'm going to delete everything within our UI, and then I'm going to delete everything inside of our Shiny server, but leave the Shiny server itself and then everything above it as well. So here we now have basically an empty UI and an empty server. And what we're going to want to do is we have to load in a couple of packages. So the first package we're going to do is Shiny, and the next one is going to be Shiny Dashboard. And so if you don't have one of these packages, if you load it and it says that the package is missing, all you need to do is run install.packages, quotation mark, and then the name of the package that it said it doesn't have access to. And we need to make sure that we wrap that into quotation marks. So since I already have Shiny Dashboard installed, I don't need to run this. But once that installs and finishes installing, all you need to do is use the library call and reference the package. So we're going to need a couple of other packages too. And rather than showing you all me type it out, I'm just going to copy these. So these are the packages: Shiny Widgets, dplyr, dt, and Shiny VS. So as I said before, we just need to install .packages if you don't have the file there. So let's jump right into getting this all squared away. So Shiny Dashboard is what we're going to use for the template of this Wordle companion, and that has 3 components. And there's a function for each component. So we have header as the dashboard header, we have sidebar as a dashboard sidebar, and we have the body as, you guessed it, dashboard body. So what we have here is our header, our sidebar, and our body, and we need to combine that into one entire UI, which we use with dashboard page. So now that we have dashboard page, it's going to take each of those 3 components. So header equal to header, sidebar is going to be our sidebar, and body is going to be our body. Perfect. And then I'm going to add one last thing to this, and this is the default that I always use, is skin of black. So you can go ahead and run this app. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to add a title to our dashboard header, and I'm just going to call this Wordle Companion. So if we save that and then click Run App, we see this pop up here with Wordle Companion. Here is our sidebar, which is toggleable, and then this is our body. So if you notice within this, we don't actually have a sidebar. So to get rid of the sidebar, we can just do disable equal to true, save that, run it again, and we now don't have the sidebar there. So lastly, one thing you'll realize is this is all white, but in here we have it all black. So in order to get the theme kind of situated the way that we want to for the Wordle solver we have, you can just go to the GitHub link in the description below and click on the www folder, and then click on the custom CSS file and just copy all of the code there. So if we copy that, we then go new file, our script, paste that in, and then we need to save this, and we need to save it in a particular way so our Shiny app knows what our CSS is. So for CSS, we need to save all of that into a folder titled www. It has to be called this, so you can't name it something else that you want. Just put your CSS into a folder called www. You can, though, name the CSS whatever you want. So I'm just going to keep the naming that I had in GitHub and call it custom CSS. So I'm going to now save that file, and R is going to ask me do I want to change this from being an R script? And yes, I do. I want this to be a CSS file. So now that we've got our CSS, we can run the app and nothing has changed. And that's because our UI isn't referencing our CSS yet. Just like if you were to make an HTML website, you have to make sure that you read in the CSS file into your sheet. So in order for us to do that, we need to go down to our dashboard page, add tags to our head. Whoops, I always type header. Add tags to our head. And then we want to reference this with the link. It's going to be a style sheet. Type is going to be text CSS. And our href is going to be the name of the file. I called mine custom.css, so that's what I'm going to put there. So now that we have this, I can save and I can click run app. And you see, if we look at the app that we have here and the app that we have here, they have the same kind of layout. So we no longer need to reference that. And instead, what we can do is we can just take a look at this as we build. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is go into our dashboard body. So here within this app, we have a lot of functionality that's actually kind of using JavaScript. And so you can use JavaScript directly in our Shiny. I prefer not to. So I use the Shiny.js package, which I actually forgot to load in. So we'll read in Shiny.js. And then all we have to do to use this Shiny.js at the begin in our document is at the beginning is just declare use Shiny.js and then separate that out by a comma. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to want to build is just the basic UI of what's the word, what word number is it, and let's put a button in there too. So we're going to give this a div, and we're going to give this div a class of word button. And inside of this div, what we want is we want a text input. We want that text input to be referenced by us as word one guess. We want to give it a label of just word one. And we want to give it a value, basically a preset placeholder of first guess for now. Okay, so now that we have that, we just have to add one more thing in, and we're going to add in our BS button with an input ID of go1, a label of lock guess, and a class of lock button. So as we do that, if we reload our app, we see that we kind of have this a little bit of what we had before, but it's not really in line in the way that we kind of want it to be in line. So to make that happen, we have to add a class to our text input. And to do that, we're going to tag append attributes, and we're going to give it a class of inline element. Save and reload, and we see that our ordering is now set. We now have this looking more pleasing to where it was before. Okay, so now we have our word here, we have our text box that we can edit the value of, and we have our lock button to lock in the guess that will eventually populate the button cards that we have down below. But here we don't have any buttons yet, so we're going to want to add those buttons, and we're going to do a fluid row, give it a column of 6, column width of 6, and we're going to offset that by 3. So it's effectively padded to the left by 3. The last thing we want to do is we want to split our layout so that it's evenly distributed across all 5 of our letter buttons. And our letter buttons are going to be BS buttons, and it's going to have an input ID that varies. So I'm going to do letter 1, word 1, but that might get kind of annoying to write out constantly. So I'm going to change this letter 1 to be L1 and then word 1 to just be W1. And then we'll give this a label of 1 just as a placeholder for now, and we'll give this a class of tile button. So you gotta add a comma to separate things out, and then we're going to copy and paste this down for all 5 of our words. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and then we're changing the letter to 3, 4, and 5. You don't need that trailing comma, but we do need a comma to separate our div from our row that includes all of our buttons. So now we've added a button for each of our letters. We've added a label of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's what should be displaying on the buttons if we click Reload App. And that's what we get is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I could change the input ID and it wouldn't change anything here. The input ID is just simply how I reference everything. So if we take a look, we now have all of our buttons, but if I click, we're not actually having the clicks that work to change the color of the buttons that we're trying to change. So that's what we're going to cover in the next video. We're going to go through changing the color of each of these buttons every time that we click them so that it can reflect what Wordle shows us. So stay tuned for that video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.